Well, it's set to be sunsetted under current law. The reforms are reforms. So we had the top 10% rule, and in 2009 we passed the reform package, and that was set to be reviewed again, all come up, go out of existence unless it's continued in the 2015 session, the next session. So in one sense you'd say, interested to hear the senator's perspective, in one sense you say, okay, it is what it is, and the reforms seem to be working at schools like UT Austin, where it was particularly focused. We're heading toward a top 7% paradigm here, keeping 25% headroom in the class, growing the class, but even beyond what the Commission on 125 wanted, but showing flexibility and growth, but not so much to hurt quality. So you could say, well, in some sense, the quality and diversity seems up. The interim reports, we're getting annual checkups on how things are going. So you can say, well, everything's going fine. But for the Fisher case going up to the U.S. Supreme Court and probably not being decided until June, late June, mid-June, when we're done, unless there's some special session, then to me, the one piece of the reform package from '09 that called for everything to come undone if there was a final ruling changing the admissions policies. So to me, at a minimum, I would say we should go in and be wise and take that one piece out of the reform package, the killer amendment, take it out, and so that people that want to revisit it, they have a grand opportunity on the next session to decide whether or not this experiment in the reform package has worked. And we'll have a full, robust debate to change any of the reforms that people want or go back to an old system. But at a minimum, it doesn't seem smart to me to put ourselves in a position where we sort of have chaos in UT admissions policy because we didn't look ahead and say there's a chance that the Supreme Court could rule a certain way that all the reform package goes out of existence while we're not in session.
So you would justify that by predictability, the value of predictability?
Yeah, just looking ahead and say we ought to do something now at a minimum. Sure. And there may be something else.
The problem is predictability, because if the Fisher case is lost, top 10% will dictate over the next 3 or 4 years 100% of the entering class in the University of Texas. To me, that is ridiculous. It also doesn't really do what was intended to do, which was to increase minority enrollment. And so what I'm going to try to do is get with the people in the Senate and pass a bill that does, as the chairman says, re-implements those limits that caps the amount of the entering class that is dictated by top 10%. Then to me, it's an easy leap of faith because there is every evidence that the administration of this university, which is really the only one affected, to a lesser degree A&M, intends to, by whatever device, increase minority enrollment. And so if it's not those measures that are under assault by Fisher, it will be something else, and we need to support it. But we need to make sure that there is a safety valve here so entire admission is not dictated by 10%, because that in and of itself is not the key to increase minority enrollment.
My gut feeling is that's not, you don't have too tough a road on that to pass that in each chamber. That seems doable, is that?
I tend to be overly optimistic whenever there's a good idea, so we may rely on his view, somewhat more rational.
As the president will remember, it was a pretty tough road in '09.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these issues create a lot of emotional fervor, at least in our chamber. The Senate's much more, subdued.
Well, maybe the emotional fervor takes place somewhere else. Maybe.
Yeah, so I hope we can get this done. What it doesn't seem to make sense is to have a situation where we're not in session and we can't call ourselves into session, as you know, Professor, unless the governor calls us in. So it doesn't seem to have a situation arise where potentially north of 30,000 students could, by right of law, all descend on one campus.
Right.
That seems silly. And there was nothing in the law before the reforms to prevent that when it happened. There was no remedy.
Right.
There was only a remedy a few years after you lived with something like that you started having some lottery to scale back against top 10. It was a I guess when the law was originally passed, that it just wasn't anticipated we'd ever get to that point, and we got to that point much quicker.